Mic check, mic check, mic check. 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on where you are. And yeah, yesterday was a holiday, a regional holiday, not a national holiday. Right, it was Ganesh Chaturthi, and that's why there was no live stream yesterday. And I know that sounds like an excuse. I generally wanted to stream yesterday. But then I thought I'll take it easy. Right. But anyway, here we are today on episode 22, and we are going to talk about design sprint Thursday and Friday. The last 2 days of the design sprint, and probably where you will find the value of investing in a design sprint. Right. And I'm saying investing because it's a lot of time and you want to know what is the value you will get out of it upfront, right? When you want to, or when you are thinking about design sprints. Now, yeah, I've conducted maybe 3 or 4 design sprints. I know that's not a lot, but even in those design sprints, we were able to get a lot of value for the amount of time that we spent. And again, the recommended timeline for a design sprint is 5 full days and roughly 6 hours a day. Right, and of course, I have been recommending since I started this series of design sprints on the live stream. It's okay if you spend even 3 to 4 hours a day for 3 days, right? The first 3 days. And in the last 2 days, because they are more tangible output kind of exercises like creating prototypes and testing it with users, you can maybe regroup at the end of the day, the entire design sprint team for 1 hour and see where do you guys stand, right? And only the participants who has to make the prototypes, who has to test the prototypes with the end users, can probably spend that 3 to 4 hours time or even entire 2 full days. Right. The point is, the entire design sprint team may not be needed. Of course, it is. It'll be very interesting to see firsthand how does your user, how do your users perceive your solutions that you have come up with. I hope there is not much noise in the background. There is a fighter jet going on. So I reside nearby an Air Force airport, right, and a defense airport, however you want to call it. And they have these exercises every now and then. I think at least maybe 2 or 3 times at least a week. Sometimes it's continuously for a week or 10 days if there is some training exercise going on, and they fly these fighter jets. And I've seen fighter jets up close, right, and it's fascinating, especially when they are flying them in the night. You see that engine exhaust that puts out a very scary yet really mind blowing jet engine exhaust. I don't know what's the technical term for it. So yeah, that's coming back to our topic. That's what we are going to talk about today. Design sprint Thursdays and Fridays, and combining Thursdays and Fridays together, because the amount of activities, the number of activities you would do on Thursdays and Fridays is very less, but they are time consuming, even though the number of activities are less. They are more time consuming compared to the other activities that you would do on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And go back and watch the last 3 episodes to get to know what do we do, right, on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. There is that fighter jet again. I'm very interested to see how it sounds on the live stream, and I hope you guys can still hear me okay. So now let me move on to this, and let me open the medium link designs and okay, I don't know if I used Google Chrome or Edge. Let me see. Yeah, usually I just keep the tabs open, but sometimes if I'm just cleaning up the tabs, I just close them off. All right, so okay, I'll go back to this and I'll copy paste this. Yeah, I know. I updated the thumbnails and I updated the title for one of the videos. I made to update the description for all of them and yet to add links to the live stream. And I know I have to get used to that and still not get used to that habit. And soon I'll fix that. So we did Wednesday and let's go to Thursday, right? So up until Wednesday, I will give you guys a recap of not recap what all we have right now in terms of output. So we found or we came up with a problem statement and the long term goal. And when I say long term goal, it has to be at least 6 months into the future. And you should always choose a big problem to solve in the design sprint because you are putting in a lot of time and effort into this. You don't want to solve something that can be solved by one or two people, and they spend maybe a couple of hours of time. You don't want to take problems of that size, right? Because then you would be wasting maybe 6 to 7 people up to maybe 10 hours or 12 hours each, right? That translates to about 60 to 70 hours, which you don't want to invest in a problem that can be solved by a couple of people by spending a couple of hours, right? That's why you should always choose a problem that is big enough and that will create a big enough impact, right? And of course, in terms of output, so you have your long-term goal, you have your problem statement, you have your journey map of what are all the different tasks, different activities, what is the entire flow related to the problem statement that you have picked up or the long-term goal that you have picked up. You have that map, and you of course ask subject matter experts, your domain experts, your users, your super users to fill any gaps that you may have in those, and then you pick a target from that map to solve for. And then you come up with solutions, you vote on solutions multiple times. Again, go back to the previous episodes to see what I am talking about in terms of voting and things like that. And then you also pick up finally two or three solutions. And with these two or three solutions, you can either put them all together into a single prototype and start creating that prototype, which you can test with your end users, right? Or if they are competing ideas, maybe come up with two or three prototypes which you can test with your end users on Friday, right? So this is all that has happened so far. Now coming to Thursday, which is when you actually create the prototype. Right. So let's take a quick look at all the activities. So pick the right tools. Um, don't use everyday tools. Okay, use tools that are fast and flexible. Blah blah blah. Okay, divide and conquer. Because it's a writer, asset collector, okay, interviewer, okay, prototype, stitch together, do a trial run, finish up the prototype throughout the day, write interview script. Okay, so yeah, like I said, the number of activities on Thursdays and Fridays are very less, but they are time consuming, right? Basically, if I have to summarize what you have to do on a Thursday, is you have the solutions that you want to work with. Now I mean, these different roles are great. What I have found is if you have a designer who is one of the participants in the design sprint, you give them the exercise, right, of putting together the solution in terms of a clickable prototype at the very least, right? If not a working prototype that you coded. All right. At the very least, I would encourage putting out a Figma prototype. right, or any other tool for that matter, Adobe XD, InVision, whatever that works for your team. So now, while you do that, one activity that I would recommend doing before that is finding out all the steps. I mean, which is again done on Wednesday, but just to make sure that you're still not missing out anything in terms of the prototype steps itself. Because in the solution, you may have overlooked the steps in terms of the prototype. It may not be relevant for the solution itself, but those steps may be relevant for the prototype, right? For example, what you would put out when some action fails, right? You want to test, okay, what is the message that the user will see, right? That may or may not be part of the solution itself, but you may have to write that or clearly call it out as a step in the prototype itself, right? Or even for that matter, what does a success message or a success screen will look like, right? It may or may not be part of the solution flow itself. So those type of things, I think, as a group, you still I would recommend figure out beforehand. So when your designer comes up with a prototype, it feels more complete, and you all are aligned in terms of what you would expect in the prototype itself. Right. So that is one step that I would recommend, in fact, strongly recommend all of you do together, right? And then the designer takes it up and creates a product. And what if you don't have a designer, right? In that case, I'd say get a designer. If not, then one of you or whoever who's accustomed to creating something like a clickable prototype should take it up and work through that. All right. And in this case, if you are not familiar with any design tools, I will recommend maybe using something like, again, Google Slides and uh, maybe even PowerPoint, which lets you create a clickable prototype or a click-through prototype. Right. So then you regroup, right? Once you have the prototype for one or two ideas that you want to test, or the one or two prototypes that you want to test to their end users, you regroup and do a dry run, right? And it can be a dry run with one of you trying to use the prototype as a user, or you can bring in someone completely new from outside, right? So they don't have any context, and they are just purely looking at it from a solution, right? And see where they struggle and if there are any gaps. So the objective here is to identify any gaps, not to assess the prototype itself or the idea itself, right? And fill those gaps, right? Wherever that they think that something is missing. Right. And when I say something is missing, a certain step is missing, and if that step is critically important for your test results, you go over and do that. And they also talk about writing an interview script. This is something we talked about on Wednesday also. You start thinking about how would they naturally land on your prototype, right? And we took an example of an e-commerce website. Maybe the entry point for an e-commerce website is a Google search, or any search for that matter, and then from that link you take them to your prototype. Right, so that is one aspect of the interview script, and then you need to think about how do you want to end the testing, right? What do you want to have any specific questions at the end? For example, how did it make you feel, right? And or uh, I saw you struggle in a certain step, right, when you were using the prototype. Why is that? What was going on in your head, and so on? And of course, we'll talk about it on in a moment, right? The recommended approach for this user testing is asking the users to think out loud, so they know. Or what is going on in their heads, right? For example, let's say I'm going through this medium screen, right? What Let's say my objective is to find what are all the articles written by John Zaretsky, and I hope I am pronouncing his name correctly. Now, what I would do, so let's pick up that task, right? And you ask your users to think out loud. And maybe it's a good idea to demonstrate what is think out loud technique and before they started, so they also have an idea of how to do and what to do, right, in the prototype testing itself. So I'm going to start the task. Okay, it looks like I can click on John Zaretsky, and I'll be able to see all the posts that he has written. Right, okay, it is okay, taking me to his page, I think, and I see home and about. The immediate thought when I landed on this page is I don't know if this was his uh, latest post, our last post, right? Because it says December 2021, but we are already in September 2022. So I'm not sure what is the order, but it looks like they are all the posts that he has written. Now, what I want to find is what are all the posts that he has recommended. So maybe I will be able to find it in about, and maybe there'll be a list of things that he has clapped for, list of articles that he has clapped. Okay, I don't think it's here. Um, hmm. Okay. Yeah, I am lost here. I'm not able to complete this task. Right. So this is an example of how think out loud technique works, right? Whatever that comes to your mind, the user you speak out basically, right? And your user speaks it out loud, so you know what's going on in their head, and it's a very very effective technique, and you'll be surprised the amount of insights that you will get from this technique. Right, so I think I have done an episode on this. I'm not sure. I'll probably do one episode tomorrow that talks about this particular technique in more detail, and we'll probably take multiple tasks and tasks that are a little more complex than finding list of posts. Right now, coming back to Sprint Thursday. Right now, on Sprint Thursday, the primary objective is coming up with the prototype, and I'm sorry, and all the other things that you need to do to make sure that the prototype is complete, and also come up with a script for the interview. How will they enter the prototype? What will happen at the end of the testing? What are the questions you might want to ask at the end of the session and things like that. All right, now let's look at Sprint Friday. Again, I think the entire Sprint Friday is okay. I'm just looking at this. The point I was going to make was the number of activities will be very less. Friendly welcome, context questions, introduce the prototype, tasks and nudges, debrief. Okay, I think these are all very common things that you would do in a user interview. Of course, I'll go over them one by one. So if you are completely new to user testing or usability testing, you'll sort of at least get an idea of what goes through. All right. So yeah, the main objective on Friday is to test the prototypes with your users and go from there, right? And this is a filler that I use whenever I don't have something or don't have anything to complete the sentences. I will go from there. I hate it myself, but please bear with me. So now, five act interview, friendly welcome, of course. You got to be courteous to your users, and give them maybe something as an incentive to break the ice, maybe a chocolate. I don't know, anything that will make them feel home, right, and put them at ease, because that's very important. Otherwise, it'll be odd for anyone to be observed, right, when they are doing something. And also, it is very important to make it very clear that what you are testing is the design solution that you are going to present and the prototype that you are going to present, right? And make it very, very clear that you are not testing their expertise or their knowledge. So they feel very natural, right? Because many times what I have noticed, if it was not made clear in a user testing session, people tend to be a little nervous and they would try to impress the person who is observing by trying really hard to find something, which defeats the purpose of the test itself, because then you may not get any honest opinions, right, of the solution itself. So it's very important to set that stage and make them feel very comfortable in terms of what is being tested, right? And then contextual questions, I think it's self-explanatory. Start with easy small talk, then to questions about the topic you are trying to learn about, and so on, right? And then you introduce the prototype. Of course, this will follow the script that you have come up with on Thursday. And then, like I said, maybe demonstrate to your users or the users that you are testing the prototype with, what is the think out aloud technique. Right, and of course, I'll quickly cover this piece while we are talking about it. It says watch together, learn together. It says don't disband the team, and I would say if you cannot spend that much time on day 4 and day 5, at least record the interview, right? And that'll at least give somewhat direct experience, somewhat first-hand experience, looking at the users, either successfully completing something or struggling to complete something, right? And that creates empathy in the team of how the user performs or how your design performs with the user, sorry, with the solution, right? So yeah, uh, that's watch together and learn together. And of course, if you cannot do it as a team, definitely record it and then watch it together as a team at least, right? I think that'll be very valuable, because otherwise it becomes more subjective in terms of one's opinion versus another opinion when you draw conclusions from the testing. When you watch it together and learn how users are reacting to your solutions, then you come to your own conclusion rather than someone else telling you or your team that this is the conclusion from the testing, right? And it becomes difficult to convince everyone that certain items need to be improved or certain items are successful even for that matter. So yeah, definitely record this session if you are not doing a live session with everyone in the team, and we'll definitely watch it together as a team. Right, and of course, the at the end is debrief, asking questions to the users, asking them to summarize their entire experience, and of course, you need to incentivize your users uh, for the testing, because then it'll be easier to recruit also. Right, and of course, they will be willing to do this session again in the future, and trust me, that's very important because you will need to test your solutions continuously, not just in the design sprint setup, but throughout your product lifecycle. All right, so yeah, that's what happens on a Friday, and then you regroup maybe at the end of the day and look at all the solutions and all the observations from the testing, and then also watch the recordings of the testing, and then write down your conclusions or be on the same page in terms of conclusions of the testing itself, right, and of the design sprint. And one important thing that they talk about in their book as well, it does not stop here. Right. The most important thing is, let's say everything worked fantastic, and your prototype is a huge hit with every participant, 4 or 5 participants or even more than that. Then, you go ahead and start implementing them in your product, right? Or maybe if you don't want to take it, or if you want to take it with a pinch of salt, maybe test it further with a few more participants and see if it still stands with other participants. right? And then you go ahead and decide what is the next course of action. Now, the other outcome is what if it doesn't work? Right. So when it doesn't work, the important thing is to continue to work on the solution, right? If it failed completely miserably, maybe something was wrong during the design sprint. Maybe it's a good idea to conduct one more design sprint, maybe in 1 or 2 weeks' time, and first try to understand what went wrong, right, during the design sprint itself, and what went wrong in the solution itself. And then do the exercise again. Maybe this time when you are working on the same long-term goals and same problem statement, try to keep it shorter, right? And iterate on, maybe just iterate on the solution also, right? And test it with your users. And as far as I know, it doesn't take, maybe unless you are completely wrong in something and you do not understand the problem statement or your users or your domain, your prototype should work in the second or third max iteration, right? And if it is not working in the second or third iteration, then something is seriously wrong somewhere. Then I think that's the first thing you need to figure out, right? But yeah, on that's a very off chance, at least in my own experience, and also what I have seen throughout my career for solutions itself, not inside of a design sprint setup, but outside of a design sprint setup also. Right. So yeah, if your solution, struggled with maybe 1 or 2 participants, and you want to fix a couple of things, right? Then in that scenario, you just improve those parts and test it again with maybe 5 completely new users, right? Or maybe a combination of 1 or 2 users that you have tested it with initially, and then the 3 or 4 new uh, users, right? And then iterate upon it. Of course, this might take maybe 2 or 3 iterations, and that's okay because now you are only iterating on the solution that worked with the majority of your participants or majority of your users that you tested with. And these exercises shouldn't take maybe for each iteration not more than 2 or 3 days, which is still a lot of value considering the problem that you are solving or the goal that you want to achieve in 6 months. And that's why it is very important to pick the right problem that will have the most impact, a bigger impact, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me go back to my full screen camera. So yeah, I think that uh, brings us to the end of the design sprint series, and I hope this was useful if you are new to design sprints, and even if you are a seasoned design sprint professional, and especially if you are a seasoned design sprint professional. Do let me know in the comment section if I have missed something, or if I have misquoted or misrepresented something, so that I can fix them. Right, and of course, this is not only for this episode, for any episode or for any topic that I am presenting. If you feel that something is not right, feel free to either comment in the post itself or in my DM, and so I can fix it, right? And I think that is a very important thing, especially when I am starting out, right? These live streams, and of course, the user experience field itself is evolving. And as I read more and more on UX, and as I see that what's going on in my own team and in my friends' careers, and in their own teams and things like that, there is a lot of room for improvement in the user experience field, because it's a very young field. And I say this to anyone uh, who asks what is UX, and if someone is curious about what is user experience and things like that. If you take up any other design field, I know I am digressing from today's topic, but I think it's important to talk about this. Right? If you take up any other design field, for example, architecture, right? Or let's say furniture design. They've been there for at least a few centuries, if not a few thousand years. So the best practices, principles, processes are all very, very, very well defined. And it's a matter of just understanding and knowing those principles and applying those principles. Right. So now, user experience has been around maybe not more than 40 or 50 years. Right. And I've seen many, many teams still struggle with the processes and still struggle on how to approach, how to make a decision in a certain scenario, etc. Right. And that's because nobody knows what to do, right? And that applies to any product management processes or even software engineering processes. Maybe software engineering is a little more matured than product management and design because it's been definitely around much longer than product and design. And it's also, I feel like the engineers are much more disciplined than designers are. Product managers, and no offense I mean, I myself, I'm a designer and I've played product management roles here and there. Right. So yeah, it's very important, I think, as a community of designers to talk about all of these things and find out and constantly maybe even reinvent the wheel, the processes, and things like that. So that's why that feedback loop is very, very important. And anytime you feel, there is something that I need to improve, or I have missed something, I misrepresented and misquoted something, please do let me know in the comment section or in my DM. Right, and I definitely, definitely appreciate that. And yeah, tomorrow we'll talk about the think out aloud technique. I need to do some preparation for it, and I will put the user's hat and try to complete a bunch of tasks. And we'll also go over, if possible, how do you interpret, those recordings, those sessions, right? The outcomes of those sessions or outputs of those sessions. So yeah, until then, see you guys tomorrow. See you. Bye bye.